Hi, bestie. How are you doing today? I hope you're having a fantastic day. Welcome back to the Best Friend Book Club. I'm Sarah, and I'm so happy you made it because today we are going to go through a chapter by chapter summary of everything that happens in A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. Also, if you are interested in seeing episodes a couple days early, if you want to see the PDF versions of the theories that I come up with or the chapter by chapter summaries, they're available on my Patreon. It's going to be patreon.com/bestfriendbookclubpodcast. Let's jump right in. So we are just going to go through chapter by chapter the main things that happen. It's not going to be every nitty-gritty detail. It's just going to be the things that are important to the story, things that I think should be pointed out before ACOTAR 6 and 7 come out. So let's just dive right in. So we start off, it's not technically a chapter, but we just immediately start off with Nesta's experience in the cauldron. It's her pointing her finger at the King of Hybern, and then her being like, no one's coming to help me, so I'm just going to take something from the cauldron while I'm in here. Okay, love it. I think this also might be where we're seeing like she pointed her finger, like pointed, not gave him the finger, because so many people like have fan art and stickers and stuff of a middle finger coming out of the cauldron, but that's not what happens. Just me? Okay. Then we have part 1, Novice. So Cassian is sent to retrieve Nesta. You find out that she's hungover. She's got this guy in her bed. Like, Nesta's just living her not so best life, I guess. We find out that she's been using sex, music, drinking to try to keep her power from feeling like too much. So her power is kind of taking over a little bit. She's having a hard time taking baths because it reminds her of the cauldron. And I guess Prithian doesn't have showers, or Valaris doesn't have showers. So there's that. And then we see Rhys and Feyre's new house, the River House, and they're waiting with Amren. So it's Rhys, Feyre, and Amren, and now Nesta and Cassian are joining. Feyre tells Nesta she's done. She's had enough of Nesta spending their money, this, that, and the third. So now Nesta is going to be training with Cassian. Now, this all happened because I'm pretty sure the night before, Nesta had like run up this crazy bill at the bar and then billed it to Rhys and Feyre. So they're like, okay, we have to do something about this. So then Nesta's being told that she will be moving to the House of Wind. She doesn't really have much of a say in this happening. Her other option is to move back to the human lands. So of those two options, I guess the House of Wind is better, but they're really not giving her an option that's not listening to them. And then the whole time that this interaction is happening, Nesta's talking to Feyre. Cassian and Rhys both seem to be worried that Nesta's going to hurt Feyre, which I think is just kind of crazy because that's her sister. Like, I don't know, they just think so poorly of Nesta. Then Nesta and Feyre talk one-on-one, and Feyre says it's embarrassing to not be able to control her own sister when she's supposed to be head of the court. I kind of see where she's coming from, but also, like, she's your sister? I don't know. As I'm sure you've heard in the other episodes, I do not like Rhys and Feyre from A Court of Frost and Starlight to now. Like, I'm still not on the Rhys and Feyre train. Like, I got off a couple stops ago. So then while Nesta and Feyre are having this conversation separately, Cassian is talking to Rhys. Rhys wants Cassian to deal with the human queens on top of training Nesta because it's like, well, Azriel has too much on his plate. That's suspicious because we don't really know what Azriel's got going on. We know that he's like kind of back and forth from the continent, but Azriel has too much on his plate, so let's put more on Cassian's plate on top of having to train Nesta and do all this. Mor shows up. She winnows Cassian and Nesta to the House of Wind, and when they get there, Cassian tries to get her to eat something, and she's just like, I'm gonna go to bed. So then Cassian meets up with Mor, and they kind of have a conversation. She tells him Valahan doesn't want to sign this new treaty, and the human queens are up to something, but she wants Cassian to find out what exactly it is that they're up to. He suggests that they should talk to Vasa, and that if that's the case, Lucien should really be the one to do this. And she says that they can't really trust Lucien to report on Vasa and Jurian because now they know that they're friends. So that kind of takes Lucien out of it, now meaning Cassian has to do that. And then we also find out that Eris offered Kier something, we're not sure what that something is, to get him to not go to Valaris. So again, like, I know this isn't the theories episode, but this comes back to the whole thing with, I do think Eris is going to be like a good guy. I think it's like you don't like him at first, but you're gonna fall in love with him. And I feel like he's doing something on his end. We don't know fully what happened that day in the woods. He's like said things here and there. And then to find out that he offered Kier something to not come to Valaris, which we knew was going to bother more. Come on now. Come on. Like, I feel like that would be, I don't know. I really want to see Eris get this, like, do this, like, 180 and be, like, this good guy. We then have the first training day. So, Cassian's trying to get Nesta to eat before training. Little banter here, push each other's buttons, but, like, what else is new? And then Nesta internally recalls the moment on the battlefield when she kissed Cassian. One of my favorite scenes. Mor winnows them up to Windhaven. They see Devlin, who says they need to bury the weapons that Nesta touches, especially if she's on her period. Okay, Devlin. Nesta then refuses to train, and Cassian trains alone while she sits on a rock because she wasn't specifically told she had to train, she had to go to training, something like that. So then Mor shows up again to take them back to the House of Wind. She sees that Nesta didn't participate, and then she compares Nesta to the people of the hewn city. Then Nesta goes to work in the library for the first time, and afterwards she gets back to the house. Cassian isn't there to have dinner with her, and the thoughts that she's having, like, it's her POV, so, like, the thoughts that she's having to herself are just very sad. I don't know, it's giving low vibes, very low vibes. Then we have Cassian's POV, so he's visiting the band of exiles. When he pulls up, Eris is there. So already, I need to stop with this. Like, I'll get to it in the theories episode, but I do think that Eris is going to get his, like, little redemption. So Eris is already at, like, he's in the human lands with the band of exiles. He says that some of his soldiers went missing, and he wants to ask Vasa if she knew anything about it. This turns into them suspecting Briolin, which is the human queen that was turned into, like, a fey crone. When she went into the cauldron, she came out old, and now she's mad about it. But they said that she needs help, like Briolin would need help, and it's probably Koshi that's working with her, which is the bone carver's brother. Well, I guess the bone carver and the weaver's brother from Wings in Ruin. And then this is when Eris informs Cassian that Baron has pledged his forces to whatever war that Briolin decides to start. And he also says that his dad, Baron, suggested giving Nesta over to Briolin, which makes Cassian mad. He's like, I'm sorry, what? Cutting back over to what Nesta's doing, she's attempting to go down the stairs. She gets to step 111 and then turns around. Apparently the steps are 1 foot tall each, meaning the House of Wind is 10,000 feet above Valaris? Question mark. Cassian finds her. He's, like, waiting for her at the top of the stairs, tells her she's pathetic and needs to come to training. The next morning, she's super sore from trying to go up and down the stairs, and Azriel's at the house. She says she wants to take she says she wants to train with Azriel, and he's the most beautiful of the three of them. I don't know if she's still feels that way, but he's the most beautiful of the three. She wants to train with him. And Cassian's like, you wouldn't even be able to handle a session with Azriel if you can't even climb the stairs, which, valid. We then have training day 2, and Nesta still won't get off that rock. Cassian takes Nesta to Rhys's mom's house, in like the Illyrian Mountains, and she flinches at the fire. He notices and then tells her about the shops that are in the village and that she doesn't have to stay at the house, but just in the general area. So Nesta goes into the village and she meets Emery. She tells Emery that she wants some warmer leathers, but she was cut off financially by Rhys and Feyre, so she can't afford them. She then meets Gwen the same day when she goes to the library. Of course, she gives Gwen a bit of an attitude, and that's kind of the foot that they start off on. And this is when we first really see the house giving Nesta some type of attitude as well, trying to feed her a few times in the day, and she claims to not be hungry. They're like little back and forth. I love the house, but the little back and forth that Nesta has with the house. Moving on, Nesta then has a nightmare about the cauldron, Elaine being taken, her dad dying, and she decides when she wakes up to go down the stairs. This is when she trips and falls. She gets pretty banged up. She catches herself and sees sparks at her fingertips. We will talk about that later. But Cassian tries to get her to train, but she won't get up. So she's really digging her heels in and saying that she is not going to go train with him. Back at the house, Nesta is eating with Cassian and Azriel says he'll keep the house as his home base and winnow to and from the human lands, which was Rhysand's idea. So now Azriel will be living with them part-time, I guess. Cassian and Nesta start arguing about their training, and she snaps and says that she hates Rhys, which upsets both Azriel and Cassian. But then Cassian tells her, oh, well, everyone hates you. Cassian, let's relax a little bit. I get the tough love, but I don't think that he was saying any of the things that he said to her with love. I think he just like was actually getting mad at her and was like, well, everyone hates you. And then Feyre comes to the House of Wind to talk to Cassian. She assures him, Nesta does not hate you because I know what it's like to be hated by Nesta. I am sick of the Nesta hate, but I guess we'll unpack that later. This is the first time that it's mentioned that Feyre has this shield around her. Her scent is masked, and he feels like that's out of the norm because it is. And he comes to some kind of realization that we don't know yet and is determined to try one more time to get Nesta to train. So he had this conversation with Feyre, and now he's thinking, maybe we'll try again. So then we have Cassian taking Nesta to the training ring that's at the top of the house and not the one in the Illyrian Mountains, because she was like, I'm not going to train in those mountains. Okay, loophole, then train on top of the house. He makes a bargain with her. 1 hour of training for a favor of any size in return. They both have now an 8-pointed star bargain tattoo down the center of their backs. And the first hour of training is just balancing, wiggling of the toes, that sort of thing, which then turns into a second hour where Nesta's actually choosing to be there. They do a little cool down, talk about Emery and why the Illyrians clip females' wings, because Emery's wings are clipped. And then Cassian says that he didn't mean it when he said everyone hated her and that he doesn't hate her. Oh, Cassian. And then Nesta says that she never hated Cassian. So, okay, we don't hate each other. Now kiss. Just kidding, because then we move on to Nesta in the library. And this is when she comes across Gwen again, who's looking for this specific book because she grabbed the wrong one for Meryl. And then Nesta asks the house for the book, And she goes to Meryl's office, does a little switcheroony. So then Nesta tells Gwen after she switched it, and then Gwen says she's in her debt for that kindness. We also learn here that Meryl is studying the existence of different realms and how they exist on top of each other, not knowing it. We'll come back to that. But now she's making a volume about the Valkyries, which were these female warriors, and we will come back to them in a second. So the next morning, Nesta comes to training willingly. At the end of training, she asks Cassian about Sangrava, which is where Gwen came from. So then he tells her that there was a piece of the cauldron there, and that Hybern had gone there with the intention of getting that piece of the cauldron. We then have Rhys and Cassian going to the spring court to meet with Eris, and Eris is pushing them to take the queens out. He's like, you need to act quickly because my dad will start a war. Rhys is acting a little distant here, like something else is on his mind. We still don't know what that something is. Then we have, cutting back to Nesta, her getting to stair number 150 before deciding to turn around. And when she gets back, the house gives her a smutty book to read. I love the book recommendations happening all throughout this book. So then Nesta is in the library, shelving books on like the lower level, and it says that the darkness calls to her. Gwen then shows up. Using her invoking stone, she leads them out and is able to like protect them from this darkness. Now, the invoking stone is like the one that they wear on their foreheads, and it's said to only be used for good, allegedly. Not that that's been proved otherwise, but I feel like Ianthe used hers pretty frequently. I'm getting off track. So then Cassian and Nesta have dinner, and they talk about the different creatures that he put into the prison. And he asks her about her powers, but she says that she doesn't have any, which, okay. We get a nice little moment where she pushes him against the wall and there's silver flames in her eyes. And he says that that look on her face nearly brought him to his knees when she was human. And now, yeah, I love them together so much. And then Nesta has a little alone time and she imagines that her hands are Cassian's hands. So we're already getting, it's chapter 15. We're already getting a little tiny bit of action. Then the next morning, breakfast is just a little awkward because we find out that they're both a little riled up after that encounter and they both had some alone time. Okay. They then go to training and they try to keep things professional. And Cassian tells Nesta about the blood right and how the ranking system works when they get out, and basically where they fall in their progress to get to the mountain's peak determines their rank in like the Illyrian forces, which we kind of learned a little bit about in Frost and Starlight. But if you skip Frost and Starlight, it's all covered there. She asks him if he'd be willing to train the priestesses since training has seemed to help her overcome these like negative feelings. So I'm interested to see how that works out. After that, Nessa then goes to talk to Clotho and she puts up a sign-up sheet and she checks it consistently. Every single day at the beginning and end of her shift at the library, she checks it to see if anyone has signed up, and no one has. She continues to try to make progress on the stairs. She then gets to step number 750. We then have Cassian showing her how to properly throw a punch and how important it is to choose your battles. Elaine then comes to visit Nesta. She says Nesta is looking better than before. They talk a little bit and then they eventually start arguing. Elaine is not backing down from Nesta. Nesta puts blame on Elaine for their father's death. Elaine's not having any of that. She is not having that. And then deep down, Nesta's blaming herself for their father's death. And Elaine blames the King of Hybern, the person who actually killed their father. Yeah, I think that's the proper person to blame for his death. After that whole interaction, Elaine starts crying. She asks Rhys to leave. Rhys and Cassian talk mind to mind, and Cassian's like, next time you need to ask Nesta if she wants to see her sisters. You cannot just spring these things on her, which I love. He's like, yeah, they want to see her, but does she want to see them? Oh, I love him, and I love how much he stands up for Nesta. And then Rhys basically tries to use his power to indicate like how mad he is at Cassian for trying to set that boundary, and Cassian does not back down. Yes! Oh my gosh. Nesta is rightfully upset after that whole interaction. She makes it to the 1,000th step and then comes back up. Cassian is waiting for her there, and he wants to know what's bothering her. He's trying to have a conversation with her, and he talks to her a little bit about how it took Feyre months to recover after coming back from under the mountain. And she's like, I don't want to hear anyone else's story. Valid. He then tells her his story and how he, with the help of Rhys and Azriel, killed most of the people in the village that he was born in, the people that were basically responsible for the poor treatment of his mother. And he tells her to throw whatever she needs to at him and that he can take it. Oh my God, the way I love this man so much. He's my favorite MMC so far in this series. And then after all that chapter, which is 18, ends with Nesta grabbing the front of his jacket and kissing him. We then get a little bit of hot and heavy kissing, a little bit of grinding, some heavy petting, turned into Cassian finishing in his pants. And Nesta's like, when Nesta said someone's quick off the mark, crazy work, but iconic. Crazy work, but yes, definitely iconic. And then Azriel's there the next morning, and he's just kind of looking at them like, I don't know. And then he tells them that they're having a meeting at the river house and that they're both expected to be there. So then we get to the river house for this meeting. Azriel tells them that Briallyn wants to find the cauldron to get back her youth, and she's working with Koshi, so confirming what they kind of suspected when they went to the human lands. Then they talk about the dread trove, which is the mask, which can raise the dead, the harp, which can open any door, physical or otherwise, and the crown can influence anyone, piercing even the mightiest of mental shields. So the mask, the harp, and the crown. Briallyn wants all three items because she believes that she'll be able to use them to track down the cauldron, and ultimately, like, when you have those three objects, you can win any war. So they come to the conclusion that they need to find the dread trove first. They can't let Briallyn get to it, and Elaine says, use me. Bob, throw me. Sorry. Incredibles reference. But Elaine is like, use me to find it. So when Elaine says that, she's like, oh, I'll use my gifts. Nesta's like, no, you're actually not doing that. Elaine and Feyre say it's not Nesta's choice. And then Nesta says that Feyre should look for it. I'm sorry, but Nesta does not hide the fact that she has a favorite sibling. Nesta's like, no, Elaine, you should not do that. Feyre, I have this crazy idea. You look for it. Which is when Feyre announces that she's pregnant, and she later tells Nesta that it's a boy. All of that to say, they now want Nesta to scry for the objects. So instead of Elaine looking for them, and then, no, you do it, Feyre. Well, Feyre's pregnant. Okay, fine. So now Nesta's going to scry for the objects. Azriel and Cassian are talking about trying to get Nesta to scry. And Cassian says, give her time. Let her figure it out. He then starts to think about the debt that he owes Nesta and tells Azriel to turn a blind eye. So the debt that he owes Nesta from when she said someone's quick off the mark, he's like, she didn't finish and that's not okay. So now he owes her this debt. So then Cassian comes to Nesta's room and they agree it's just sex. That's all it is. No strings attached, because that'll end well. He gets his little taste and then grabs his shirt and leaves. So now they're even. For now. Then we have Azriel joining Cassian and Nesta for training. Cassian and Azriel spar, and Azriel looks to Nesta with wide eyes to distract Cassian so that he can land a punch. So they're sparring and it's like pretty even, and then Azriel turns like his head to where Nesta is and like his eyes bug out of his head, and then Cassian's like, huh? It turns over to look at Nesta, and now, Azriel wins. While this is going on, Nesta then fantasizes about being shared by Cassian and Azriel. I know there's fanfics out there. Like, I know there's fanfics. So drop the recs because I need them in my life. I'll look for a few, and if I find a good one, I'll let you know. She says that she's had 2 males in her bed before, which I wonder if at a later point in time there will be a situation with like Nesta, Cassian, and some other person like Eris. Oh my god, maybe it's wishful thinking. Maybe it's wishful thinking, but I don't know. I don't know how the mind of SJM works, but she hinted at it that it's been a thing. Getting my mind out of the gutter. Then Nessa goes to the library. She asks Gwen if she knows anything about the Dread Trove or if she's capable of finding information on it. And then she asks Gwen if she'll come to training, to which Gwen says she's not a warrior. Okay. Clotho then asks Cassian to come to the library to make Nesta stop practicing because she keeps practicing in between the shelves. And he notices that she's punching incorrectly when she's practicing, so he fixes it and sees that the priestesses were watching them. This was all part of Nesta's plan to get them to come to training. So she purposely was throwing her punches incorrectly, knowing he would correct it. Then she stood out in the aisle so that all the priestesses could see the way that he was correcting her. So then she goes back to her room to see that Cassian left a book for her. It's called The Dance of Battle. And I am just a sucker for like, he recommends a book to her. Yes. Especially like when they're already like into reading. And book recommendations are a love language. They just are. Okay. The next day, she's in the library and there's one name on the sign-up sheet. Gwen has decided to join her for training, which leads us into part 2, Blade. So Gwen joins them for lessons and then she marvels at the sky. She has not been out of the library in a very long time. Gwen says that she doesn't want to ever feel powerless again. Neither does Nesta, so that's why they're training. So then Cassian has a meeting with Eris. He brings Nesta with him to Windhaven, and she visits Emery while Cassian has this meeting. Emery's cousin Bellius is drunkenly trying to bully her into something, but we don't know what that something is yet. He's just trying to convince her of something. That's all we got in that exchange. Emery then invites Nesta to have lunch with her. They talk about their families. Nesta talks about her dad being a merchant. And the conversation ends with Nesta inviting Emery to join them for training. But Emery's like, I don't have a way to get there. It's obviously an excuse, but Nesta says that the offer still stands. There's ways around that, more Reese. Someone can winnow Emery to and from. And then we had the meeting with Cassian and Eris. Eris tells us that Briolyn is keeping things from Baron because she doesn't fully trust him. So Eris is kind of playing double agent right now. He is the only piece, like he's the window into what's going on in the Autumn Court / with Briolyn. So love Eris for that. Nesta then finds Cassian in the kitchen kind of brooding over everything that happened with Eris. And, Eris is kind of being an asshole. So he's brooding, and then Nessa's like, let me just distract you real quick. So she gets on her knees and, distracts him. And he tells her to take off her pants. But then Azriel shows up and kills the vibe. And in this scene, I love that Azriel's like shuffling in the hallway because Cassian literally thinks to himself, like, he didn't have to do that. Like, he's making noise to warn us that he's coming down the hallway because he usually doesn't make any noise. So I just was like, Azriel was like, oh, wow, beautiful day. Like, he's just making this noise so that Cassian's like, okay, we're not alone anymore. So then we have Gwen and Nesta. So Gwen tells Nesta that she was not able, well, that her and Meryl were not able to find anything on the Dread Trove, but that Meryl was able to break through the glamours that held the items, like, from memory. So the items had a glamour around them because they didn't want to be remembered. And Meryl was able to break through that somehow. I'm interested to hear more on Meryl. We then have Cassian going to Windhaven, and Nesta sends some gifts with him for Emery, which are spices and tea. And he tells Emery that she's invited to train. And this chapter ends, this is 27, ends with Emery showing up for training. So then we have Emery, Gwen, and Nesta training with Cassian. Cassian says that Emery is having a hard time balancing because of her wings. And the girls kind of bond over reading romance books, and Emery's going to bring a book for Gwen. And I just love it so much. And then Rhys talks to Cassian mind to mind, where Cassian stands up for Nesta again. I love the amount of times that he stands up for Nesta. And he tells Rhys to stop assuming the worst with Nesta. And then Rhys actually apologizes. Basically, he just assumed the worst about Nesta spending time with Emery and Gwen. It's like, I get it. Rhys is protective of his mate, but he's being an asshole. So then Nesta has another nightmare, and she goes to the stairs. She gets to step 3,000, and the house gives her water and some bones and stones while she's in the stairwell to try to convince her to scry. Nesta says she can't, and she climbs back up the 3,000 steps. Moving to family dinner at the river house, Nesta's not there. And Amren tells Cassian that Nesta needs to scry for the Dread Trove. Like, she needs to get on that. And if they have to use Elaine to manipulate Nesta into doing it, then so be it. I'm sure you guys know how I feel about this, but Cassian does not like the sound of this. I'm so tired of them using one person to manipulate the other, and it's like, it's supposed to be like a family. This is found family, but also like we don't really fuck with Nesta. Ugh, it just makes me angry. So then, moving to where Nesta is, Nesta's in the library with Gwen. When Meryl finds out that Nesta switched the books, she's pissed off. So we now know that the whole time Meryl knew the wrong book was there. So when she went to go get the book and the book was right, she's like, hold on a fucking minute. And then she said that Nesta's scent was on the book. We then find out that Meryl is descended from Rabath? We're going to go with Rabath. He's the Lord of the Western Wind. And we also find out that Gwen is a quarter nymph and that she had a twin sister. I'm interested to see more about Gwen's lineage because we don't know what the other 3/4 are. The next morning, 3 new priestesses come to training after seeing Nesta stand up to Meryl. Nesta then attempts scrying that evening. That doesn't work. She then is in bed and can feel the cauldron looking for her. Castian and Azriel go to her room because they hear her screaming. This whole scene where like Cassian wakes up out of his sleep hearing Nesta screaming and how him and Azriel like meet each other in the hallway and run to her. It's so good. So they find her wrapped in silver flames and what's described as a cold fire. Rhys shows up, uses his power to calm Nesta down, and reveals that her power is pure death. And what they just saw, what Rhys struggled to get under control, is just a fraction of her power. So then Nesta wakes up in her bed the next morning, and Cassian had been sleeping in the chair next to her all night. And I don't know what it is about that specific trope where like he will not leave her side. There's something about it that just speaks to my soul. I love it so much. Rhys later on tells Cassian and Azriel that the baby has wings, and he's freaking out about it. Feyre was fully Illyrian when the baby was conceived. She was fully able to shapeshift, and now she's forbidden from shapeshifting. Make that make sense? But basically, the baby's going to get stuck in the birth canal, killing both Feyre and the baby, is the conclusion that they've come to. So they're trying to find a solution to that problem. So after that's revealed, Cassian and Rhys spar. Cassian comes back all bruised up from the sparring with Rhys, and he tells Nesta that the baby has wings and what that means. After all that, he asks her why she hasn't sought him out after their little, I don't want to call it a romp in the hay, because it wasn't. It was a little dallying, a little dillying and dallying that they did. And he's like, why haven't you sought me out? And then she says that when he's healed, he can have her wherever he wants her. Bet. After that, Nesta decides that she wants to try scrying again. And this time she's with Feyre, Rhys, Amren, Azriel, and Cassian. When she's scrying, the whole room turns cold. She's cold. And Rhys is trying to get into her mind. Feyre's trying to get into her mind. Nothing's working. So then Cassian kisses her to bring her back. And it is the only thing that actually works in bringing her back from whatever spiral she was going into. And mind you, he's now kissing her in front of Rhys, Azriel, Amren, and Feyre. Okay. They find out that the mask is in the Bog of Orid, which is in the middle. And Nesta's like, we're leaving the next day to go get it. Like, we leave tomorrow. Which leads to Cassian, Nesta, and Azriel go to the bog. They're on their way. They tell her about kelpies, and they're a myth to keep kids away from playing in the water. And as they're flying, Nesta senses something off. And then when they look over, Azriel's now missing. So the solution to that is Cassian now puts Nesta up in a tree. You wait here. I'm going to go get Azriel. Okay. So they believe that Azriel's being attacked by Autumn Court soldiers who have ash arrows. And Cassian knows what each second costs him to get Nesta to safety. However, he still takes those extra seconds to get her to safety. Cassian then tells Nesta not to move, but she feels like she's there for a very long time. She starts to get concerned, and she's like, Cassian could be hurt. Azriel could be hurt. Like, I gotta go. She's not really too worried about Azriel, but Cassian could be hurt. She decides to climb out of the tree. She looks into the water, and she sees what's described as night dark eyes. Nesta is then dragged into the water by a kelpie, which shouldn't exist technically, but she's dragged into the water by a kelpie. And then in the middle of the chapter, right after that happens, cut to Cassian and Azriel, who killed most of the Autumn Court soldiers, but they kept 2 alive for questioning so that they can kind of, play them off of each other. And they just keep saying that something's off with the soldiers. They don't know exactly what, but something's just not right with them. They fly back to where Cassian left Nesta, and they can't find her. Who would have thunk? So then we cut back to Nesta's POV. She's being dragged through the water by this kelpie, and he keeps kissing her to give her breath in between them swimming. So they're swimming, she's running out of air, and then the kelpie kisses her and puts his tongue all in her mouth, and now she has oxygen again. While she's being dragged, she finds the mask and decides to put it on her face. So now Nesta can control the dead in this water, uses them to kill the kelpie, cuts off its head. This is one of my favorite scenes of all time. So she cuts off the head. It cuts back to Cassian and Azriel. They're searching the water for her. They can't find her. And then the dead start to rise up, followed by Nesta holding the kelpie's head in her hand and wearing the mask. And Cassian and Azriel bow to her. I love this so much. It's literally one of my favorite scenes in this entire book. And the fan art for this goes crazy. She takes the mask off, and Cassian pulls her out of the water. They make it back home. They're then torturing the Autumn Court soldiers, and they realize that they're under some type of spell. Feyre then suggests that they invite Helion to try to figure out what's going on. So Rhys ended up putting the mask in this, we'll call it just in a room, and he warded the room so that no one would be able to get to it. Surprise, surprise, Nesta can get to it. So they think that the mask opened the door for her, but Nesta's now agreeing to be taught how to ward the mask so that she won't be called to it. Nesta then shows Rhys what the Kelpie said to her, and then he shows that to Amren. And apparently the Kelpie was speaking an ancient tongue from 15,000 years ago. We will be coming back to that. Nesta is then taking a bath and contemplating using the mask just to get out of her own head. So this confirms to her that the mask needs to be destroyed. She is starting to be tempted by the power that comes with it. So that's not good. So after all that happens, Cassian brings Nesta dinner to her room, which turns into them getting a little freaky deaky for the first time. Before they started, though, Nesta said it was just sex. So immediately after, Cassian picks up his clothes, he gets dressed, he's like, it's just sex, and leaves. So now Nesta's like, he didn't even cuddle me. What's up with that? So that's kind of a running theme there. Emery and Gwen are asking Nesta the next morning if her and Cassian got together because they just keep looking at each other longingly and they have a feeling that something happened. Cassian ends up coming over to where they are, and then Nesta asks if they can be trained with swords. So Cassian then shows Nesta how to hold her sword and teaches her the different combinations, which encourages the other priestesses and Emery as well to try it out. At this point, they now have 11 women training. So Cassian calls in the big dog, calls in Azriel to join them and help them with training. And the whole time, Gwen keeps an eye on Az. Interesting. I do think that they end up together, but maybe that's me just being delusional. Azriel was the one to find her, so that might be the draw to him. But Gwen and Nesta practice this breathing technique, this Valkyrie breathing technique, later on in the library. And Nesta says that this is the first time that she's truly felt settled in her body. And then she's also thinking to herself about how Gwen is her friend. And I'm just loving all these friendships for her. I love the growth we see with Nesta throughout this entire book. So then Cassian takes Nesta to a blacksmith so that she can see how swords are made, because he thinks in seeing how they're made, you'll appreciate the craftsmanship and understand the sword a little bit better. So then she's shown how to hammer different weapons. That's kind of where that's left. She hammers 3 different weapons. We move on. Nesta then wants to spar the last few minutes of practice the next day. So she's hitting this wooden beam that's wrapped in fabric, so kind of just like a dummy. And she becomes lost in this trance while she's hitting it. Then while that's happening, Lucian shows up. And Lucian's like, Feyre wanted a progress report on Nesta from someone who hasn't seen her in a while. Which it's like, Feyre, just go look yourself. Like, why do you need Lucian's opinion? But I guess it's not important. And Nesta punched the wood so hard that it is now burning cold from the inside, and then it disintegrates completely. And then Lucian's like, God's help us all. Lucian's like, holy shit. I love the way that he reacts to this, and like the same thing when he met Amren the first time. I don't know, I like it. So after all that happens, Helion pulls up on a flying horse, and Rhys and Feyre tell Helion that she's pregnant. Helion then goes and looks at the Autumn Court soldiers, and he says that feels like they're being influenced somehow. And they kind of put two and two together and realize that Breelin might have the crown. And then they tell Helion about everything going on minus Eris's involvement in the whole thing. At this point, Helion then sees the mask and shows Nesta how to ward it. To ward it. That sounds like toward. But anyways, Nesta doesn't want to know how to unlock it because Helion's like, oh, let me show you how to undo it. She's like, nope, that's fine. That is perfectly fine. Show it to Rhys. And if I ever need it, Rhys knows, but she does not want to know how to unlock it because she's scared that it will tempt her to unlock it. It kind of defeats the purpose of warding it, quite honestly. Then Cassian brings Nesta some new books, and they talk about how they didn't seek each other out, which turns into some hot and heavy back-to-back-to-back rounds. Like, this is when we get put your hands on the headboard. Like, it was giving. It was giving everything it needed to give. Okay? Next morning, the blacksmith brought the 3 swords that Nesta had worked on to Rhys. He said that the swords were cursed, and they figured out that Nesta was able to imbue the swords. So Cassian and Azriel want to tell Nesta. They're like, she deserves to know. Amren doesn't. And now Feyre will be the tiebreaker. So Amren and Rhys are like, nope, she does not need to know this. Cassian and Azriel were like, yes, she deserves to know this. So now we got to wait on Feyre to find out what she's going to decide. So at this point, the conversation moves into Amren pushing Rhys, and she's like, you would be a great High King. He seems to have no interest in it. And I say seems because that could change. But she says that with these 3 swords, it would make him even more powerful and back his claim to being the High King, which I do not want to see Rhys as High King. Then we have Nesta and Cassian meeting Eris at the Spring Court to tell him about the soldiers that they found, kind of, catch up. And Eris is talking down to Cassian. Nesta steps up for him, brings up the fact that the soldiers had ash weapons, and she's really playing the political game here, but she's like, that's so weird that your soldiers were equipped with ash arrows. What's that about? So they're kind of going back and forth there. Tamlin shows up in his beast form, and when Nesta's talking to him, she points her finger at him and promises to rip his head off if he says anything about what he just saw. Later on, Cassian finds Nesta in the library after she can't sleep. This then turns into Cassian takes Nesta upstairs. Some little freaky time, little 69 action. Okay, pop off. The next morning, they're training again, and Cassian talks about how he knew the Valkyries, and he encourages Gwen to bring the Valkyrie techniques so that they can work on those the next time that they're all together. And I don't know if it's said here, maybe it said in Frost and Starlight, but like Cassian's first lover outside of the Night Court was a Valkyrie. So I think maybe it said later on. Okay. Focusing back up. Finally, we get Feyre's say in this whole thing with Nesta. Feyre votes that Nesta should be told about the weapons. I agree with that. And then this is also where Elaine tells them the story of Nesta dancing with this Duke to spite someone who was mean to Elaine. And then the Duke proposed the next morning. And this is when Nesta was 14 years old. So we're basically just learning that Nesta's an amazing dancer, and they're going to put a pin in that and come back around to it. So during training, Cassian asks Nesta, what would you name a sword? Just like out of pure curiosity, what would you name a sword if given the opportunity? So then afterwards, he tells her about the whole thing with the blacksmith. He slips up by telling her that Rhys and Feyre, he basically tells her Rhys and Amren voted against her, and him, Azriel, and Feyre voted that they should tell her. Rightfully, she's feeling a little upset, and he's trying to fix it, but then she walks away. and she goes to the stairs. She is so upset because they were voting on whether or not she should learn something that she did. Like, I get it. But she is on a warpath. So she gets to the stairs, she finally makes it to the bottom, and she honestly doesn't really know what to do. She's like, what now? So she completely rages. She finds Amren, confronts her. They exchange a lot of words that they'll probably regret. But Nest is like, you picked Feyre over me. And Amren's like, I didn't pick Feyre. I just realized I was enabling you. And I didn't want to do that anymore. Feyre then shows up to try to split them up. And that's when Nesta tells Feyre, oh, by the way, the baby's going to kill you. And everyone here knows and just hasn't told you. Yeah, probably shouldn't have done that, but someone had to tell Feyre, I think. I don't know. Like, I don't know if in that situation I would want to know or if I would just, like, be like, don't tell me. It's hard. Okay, anyway, so then Cassian is with Rhys when Rhys finds out that Nesta told Feyre. He tells Cassian, he says, you need to get Nesta out of this city before I kill her for telling Feyre that, which is a little much. It's a little much for me because it's like, you're also keeping things from your mate, but I guess, yeah, get Nesta out of the city before I kill her. Okay. Which we know he would never do because that's his mate's sister, but still. So Cassian immediately finds Nesta, flies up to the House of Wind, and he gets some supplies from Azriel, and they flee the city. They go to the mountains. Feyre then speaks mind to mind with Cassian, and she's like, she's mad that they didn't tell her. But she doesn't want the baby to feel panic and fear and all that. But she's like, she's saying, I'm mad you didn't tell me. Okay, so yeah, Nesta just said it to hurt her, not to actually like inform her, because she loves her. But moving on. In that same conversation, Feyre asks Cassian to take care of himself and to take care of Nesta. And she says that Rhys overreacted and he apologizes and they can come back whenever they want. But Cassian decides no. Nesta needs a few days and they'll come back when he decides that they're ready to come back. So Cassian and Nesta now start their hike. And Cassian can see in her eyes that she just doesn't care if she lives or dies. And he thinks that she needs to pull herself out of it. He's like, she needs to make the decision to pull herself out of that. It's not something that can be forced on her. They continue to go on the hike, and Nesta just does not speak the whole time. She's carrying like this heavy backpack with all her stuff in it, and at night she's just like turning the other way from Cassian, falling asleep. Like she's gone nonverbal at this point. Nesta then follows Cassian for 2 days. And after not drinking water for those 2 days, she ends up passing out. And Cassian is torn between wanting to be soft with her, but on the other side, something's telling him that if he just pushes her a little bit more, just one more mountain, things will change. They make it to this lake at the end. She asks herself if she's worth being counted, like, if she counts. Like, if this is all, like, if she's worth anything, basically. She then collapses and cries. It's a whole thing. Nesta's sobbing. Cassian's comforting her. And she's like, I let my dad die. All of the feelings that she has about her dad's death, the treatment of her father before he passed, like everything just kind of comes out of her. And she explains to him why she doesn't like fires and that she shouldn't have let Feyre go into the woods that day or into the woods at all. She wanted to see her dad step up. She's really like unpacking everything. And she hates that she does all these things, but for whatever reason, she cannot stop herself. So then Cassian tells her that she can ask for forgiveness from the people that she hurt, but she needs to forgive herself too. And he holds her as she cries, and he tells her to get up, hands her a sword, and shows her the 8-pointed star. And, seems to be, she practices that, kind of comes back to herself, which leads us into part 3 Valkyrie. Cassian and Nesta come back from their hike. I guess it's a hike, right? And then Nesta is training, and this is when Gwen ties the ribbon to the post. And apparently for the Valkyries, your training is complete when you can cut the ribbon with the blade. So they try to do that at the end of every session, or I think at the beginning and end of every session. Cassian and Nesta at this point cannot keep their hands off each other. It's starting to get to Nesta that they don't sleep in each other's room. So it's starting to bother her that they can't keep their hands off of each other, but as soon as things are done, he goes back to his room. And then Nesta asks Gwen if she can go to the religious service because she misses music. So sounds like Nesta's going to church. Nesta ends up going to the service, and the singing calms her so much that she accidentally ends up scrying between the stones that are in the cavern and her own bones. Okay. She's able to see the harp and she speaks to it. Cassian then tells Rhys that Nesta thinks that the harp is in the prison, even though she's never been. That's kind of what she saw when she was scrying. And Rhys tells Cassian to take the blade that Nesta made with them. All of a sudden, he's pro-blade after he said Nesta couldn't know about it, but okay. Cassian and Nesta are now in the prison, and she wants to get the harp by herself. And Cassian says he can't risk her. Oh my God. I love him so much. Apparently, the prison is exactly like her vision. They talk about the prison being like an 8th court once upon a time, and that the inmates were probably put there to hide the harp's power. So Nesta gets to the harp, and she's touching it while Briolin is wearing the crown, which allows Briolin to see her and for her to see Briolin. So now they can see each other, and now Briolin knows that Nesta has the harp. The harp then convinces Nesta to strum it so that the wards around it would be lifted, and it actually ends up opening the door to a cell that's holding Lanthus, which Cassian was telling Nesta about, of course, when they were coming in. So Nesta tells Cassian at the end of all this, so like she's got the harp, they think everything's fine. She tells Cassian that she thinks he's her friend, and he says he's always been her friend. Kind of a sweet moment until they realize that the cell door is open. So he turns to Nesta, tells her to run. We also find out that she named her sword Ataraxia. We don't know what that means just yet. So Cassian puts Nesta behind him, tells her to run. He's talking with Lanthus, who he says that he can't tell what Nesta is because Cassian's scent is all over her. We'll come back to that. So Nesta ends up running away from Cassian and Lanthus, and she ends up encountering some Autumn Court soldiers that are believed to be sent by Briolin. So Nesta uses the harp to get back to Cassian, and then she uses Ataraxia to slice Lanthus into a Fey body. So the sword touches him. He's now bound into this Fey body. She's fighting with him. Cassian is bleeding, and then behind her, like, he's kind of off to the side while she's battling Lanthus, and then Cassian ends up throwing a dagger at Lanthus, which is one of the made pieces, like one of the made, it was a dagger, a sword, and something else. The thing that Nesta made. So then Nesta uses the harp after that to get them back to Valaris. They're now back at the river house, and Cassian is healed by Madja. Madja? Oh, why can't I say these names? The healer. Madja. Oh my God. Then Nesta apologizes mind to mind with Feyre for telling her the way that she told her. And they all discuss what happened in the prison. So then Rhys tells them of the Daglin who created the Fae and then enslaved the Fae and humans. He also tells the story of Fionn, which is the first and only, as of right now, High King, and how he was betrayed by his queen and his general. I feel like that story is going to come back around later. Rhys he tells Nesta that he wants her to dance with Eris because he found out that she has these amazing dance skills, and they want Eris to know that they're still allies. And then Azriel takes Cassian and Nesta to her old cottage because she felt the need to go there. And then they're kind of exploring. The cottage is just Cassian and Nesta together. And then Cassian asks her to show him around, and she shows him the drawers that Feyre painted. Again, these freaking drawers. The bed that they slept in. She kind of opens up about all of the feelings that she had about her dad, all the hate that she had in her heart towards him. And she didn't understand how he never yelled at them, and the fact that he named a ship after her and rode it into battle to help them. Like, it's a lot for her to process. We're cutting to, I'm assuming sometime later. Mor teaches Nesta a few of the different waltzes. They both go to the library together, and Emery is blushing over Mor. Wonder if that'll turn into anything. Gwen gives Nesta and Emery a chapter of the book that Meryl is working on as a solstice gift to them. So solstice is coming around, and it's a chapter that is about them, the rebirth of the Valkyries. And then Nesta asks the house to make a small fire. She mind stills while enduring the cracking, and the house leads her to the heart of the library, which we find out is the heart of the house. And the house is just like the priestesses, Emery and Nesta. The darkness is what haunts the house. So in healing the house, the darkness will go away. They end up going to the Hewn City. I can't remember why, but Rhys and Feyre show off that Feyre is pregnant. Rhys ends up gifting Eris the dagger. Oh, I'm pretty sure they're going to the Hewn City for solstice celebrations, and this is... Okay, yeah. They gift Eris the dagger that Nesta made as a gesture of their trust of him. They don't tell him that Nesta was the one that made it. Instead, they're like, oh, it's a family heirloom. Okay. Nesta then dances with Eris, and Cassian is like, I think Elaine undersold her sister's abilities on the dance floor. And Nesta is smiling ear to ear. She's enjoying the music. She loves the dancing. She speaks a little bit with Eris, where he's like, you're even more beautiful than Elaine. Okay. And says that her talents are wasted at the night court. I need to get to that in the theories episode. I will not talk about it now. Cassian ends up cutting in. He's like, let me just get a little dance with her real quick. Eris kind of has a little like dick measuring thing with Cassian. Like, they're kind of going back and forth, but Nessa's like, you need to share. So she dances with Cassian. Okay, this was really cute, but we find out that Mor had been secretly giving Cassian dance lessons the last few weeks so that he would be ready to dance with Nesta too, which I just think is so cute. And then Eris talks to Rhys and offers him anything he wants. Anything he wants in exchange for Nesta to be his bride. Well, I don't think that really panned out for him. He says that he wants to get back at Cassian for what he did and for what Mor did in ruining their marriage. And so that's why he wants Nesta. Rhys says that he'll talk to Nesta, but Feyre is pissed. So then we have solstice celebrations and Feyre's birthday. Lucian's there, as well as Amren, Varian, Cassian, Azriel, Mor, Nesta, Elaine, Rhys, and Feyre. The whole squad has pulled up. They go over what everyone got each other. Nothing really of note. Azriel got Nesta a little reading light, which she loves. And then this is when we find out, because everyone wants to be like, oh, we never find out what gift Cassian threw into the Sidra. We literally find out it's in chapter 58 that the gift that he threw into the Sidra was a tiny book, one of the oldest in existence that he got for her. He ended up throwing it into the Sidra. It's literally right there. But people are like, oh my God, I wonder what the gift is. It's right there, chapter 58. Okay, moving on. So they're now staying at the river house, and Cassian comes to see Nesta, and he gives her a symphonium, which he took to different musicians to capture music, the bars that she likes to go to. and got them to play the music, and then it's all captured on the Symphonia so that she can listen to it whenever she wants. Nesta, unfortunately, tells him that she can't accept it. And she tells him that she doesn't deserve him, and she tries to put space between them to punish herself. It's all frustrating, but basically they end up getting a little freaky. They take their time with each other, though. And it's described that golden threads twine between them. And Nesta finally asks Cassian to stay with her after all of it happens. So we will touch back on that later. Emery and Gwen then come over to the house for a sleepover. And Cassian's gone for a few days after all of this happens. So the whole thing happens solstice night. Cassian's now missing in action. He's got some things to attend to with the Illyrians all of a sudden. And this is eating Nesta alive. She is just like, I miss my man. Valid. They find out that the house is magic, and they ask for all sorts of silly things during this sleepover. They make friendship bracelets together with these like little charms, and Nesta takes the charms in her hands and she makes a wish for them to be able to go out in the world whenever they're ready, but to be able to find each other. So she's holding them in her hands. She wishes that the charms glow a little bit after she says that. We will circle back to that. Nesta, Gwen, and Emery all the next morning cut the ribbon and are now Valkyries. Cassian is clearly avoiding Nesta and is only there for training. 2 months pass in this chapter. So this is chapter 60. 2 months pass. And it's them training, working in units of 3. And that chapter ends with Lord Devlin being invited to witness them complete the Blood Right qualifier, which they didn't know they were completing, but Cassian and Azrael wanted to prove that the females were just as skilled as the Illyrian males. So that's why they invited Devlin out. So Nesta has not been able to get to the bottom of the stairs since that day that she was absolutely raging, and she's determined to get to the bottom. She finally gets there, turns around, looks at the house, and immediately just goes right back up the stairs. And Cassian is there waiting for her at the door. Also, this is where we get Nesta. She gets on one knee and apologizes to Amryn. This is when Amryn talks to her and tells her that she made the house when she wished for a friend. So the house was never like this before Nesta showed up. And she says, "Welcome back to the Night Court, Nesta Archeron." So then Cassian and Nesta meet Eris in the middle, where he finds out that they have the harp. And then he informs them that his dad met with Brielyn, but didn't bring him along this time, so he doesn't really know what was said exactly. Eris wants to know the status of his marriage offer to Nesta, and she basically says no. And he's like, well, if you stay with the Night Court, you risk your ruin. I wonder if that will be true. Cassian and Nesta are then walking through Valaris, and he casually drops in conversation that they're mates. And he's known since he first kissed her, and it was solidified on solstice night. They exchange some words. She says that she will lose the last bit of her humanity if she says that they're mates, and that she didn't choose to be Fae. And he's like, I didn't choose to be shackled to you. Okay, poor choice of words, because that sets her off, rightfully so. And then she decides to call in her bargain. She says that he needs to go up to the House of Wind for the night and can't speak to her unless she speaks to him first or until a week passes. We find out later that she didn't word it correctly because she said he only needed to go up to the House of Wind for the night, not for the week. So Mord then takes Nesta to Emery's house, and then she also grabs Gwen and brings Gwen to Emery's house. They have a little sleepover. They comfort her. They talk and eat. They go to bed. When Nesta is then woken by the scent of a male in her room that she does not recognize. Something wet is pressed to her face, and then she passes out. Then we have Cassian's point of view. This is when he's thinking, like, I need to teach Nesta how to word her bargains because it was just for the night. Rhys takes him to Windhaven. They get to Emery's house and find that all 3 girls are missing. And they then put together that the girls have to compete in the blood rite. Dun dun dun. So then we get to part 4, Ataraxia. Nesta wakes up in the blood rite. She does not know where her friends are. She's in a nightgown. It's freezing. And she woke up before everybody else. There's one male that wakes up after her. They see that there's a knife in a tree nearby, and she immediately takes off to get to the knife first. Throughout this entire part 4, the cut back and forth between Cassian and Nesta's POVs drives me a little crazy. But then we cut back to Cassian. It's Azriel, Rhys, Feyre, Amren, and Cassian. And he's like, we have to go into the blood rite to get her. But he knows that if he takes Nesta out, the both of them will be hunted down. And even Rhys can't interfere. And we also find out that Briellen has captured Eris. So now Azriel and Cassian are being tasked with going to get Eris. And this is also when the inner circle finds out about the bargain, the stupid ass bargain that Rhys and Feyre made to die together. Okay. Cut back to Nesta. She tumbles down the hill with the male when they're fighting over the knife, ends up killing him on the way down. She steals his clothes and his shoes, and then she goes to find her friends. Her bracelet starts to glow when she's holding it in different directions, and she realizes that she made the charms to act as beacons. So whichever friend is to the north needs her help the most because the charm is lighting up more rapidly, I think. Yeah, it's glitching out. So then she heads in that direction and is met with someone holding an arrow to her face. And this is when she realizes that someone put weapons throughout the blood rite, which you're not allowed to have any weapons unless you make them. Cut back to Cassian and Azriel. They're circling Briellen's palace from above. They're looking for Eris. They're not able to find any trace of him, but they stay there. Cut back to Nesta. She finds Emery passed out in this freezing water. She gets naked. She goes into the water to get Emery out. She uses the bow to attach Emery to her back, swims back out, makes a fire out in the open to warm them up. She's a freaking baddie. And then an Illyrian male finds her, shows her where there's a cave, promises not to harm them because he knows who her sister is. This Fae's name is Balthazar, and Nesta does not sleep the entire night because she doesn't trust him. I mean, rightfully so. Like, she doesn't know this guy. They hear beasts attacking some of the Illyrians. Cut back to Azriel and Cassian, still looking for Eris. They find out that he'll be moved to a new location, so they're just waiting for him to be moved so they can track him. And then cut back to Nesta. Emery wakes up at the end of the chapter. That's chapter 66. And Nesta got clothes for them from all the dead Illyrians in the morning. And their bracelet is now glowing frantically in the direction of Gwen. So they follow the path that it's making. Nesta and Emery get to this campsite. There's now 10 males there. They have Gwen's nightgown hanging from a tree. And Nesta goes to look what's going on. She turns back around and finds Emery is being dragged away. Cut back to Cassian. He's getting a little restless, waiting for them to transport Eris. No one's moved in or out of the castle. Really, there's not much happening with them because then we cut back to Nesta again. We find out that Bellius, Emery's cousin, is the leader of this group and that now they're captured by this group of 10 male Illyrians. It seems that Briellen somehow has ensnared him with the crown and that she was part of these weapons being planted. So then Gwen leads this giant beast to the campsite, takes out most of the males, and now the 3 friends are reunited and they're moving on. So the 3 of them tie themselves together in a tree to go to sleep for the night. And Emery tells them the story of Anelius and how he held the line against the enemy for days during a war long ago. So they talk about this natural archway that's like at the base of the mountain and that he used it as a bottleneck. So they decide to try to make it to Ramiel. So they were deciding, do we just kind of wait out the rest of the blood rite here? Do we try to complete it and become these warriors? So they decide to complete the blood rite. There's a bridge they need to go over first, but they're trying to get there first because if someone else crosses it, they'll cut the bridge down and then they'll have to go a long way around. They come across a group of Illyrians. that they're fighting with end up taking them down. So back to Cassian and Azriel. There's finally some action. They'd been waiting for 4 days. Finally, someone leaves the castle, and Eris is riding with a small cloaked figure. We don't know who that figure is, and they believe Eris to be a traitor at this point. So now they're following him to see how deep that betrayal goes, and they're like, oh, well, he can't be under her spell because he has the made object. So they're like, he's obviously a traitor. So now a new group of males shows up when the Valkyries are trying to cross the bridge. And Gwen is shot through the leg with an arrow. Nesta uses her archery skills that were taught to her by her sister a long time ago to save Gwen from falling. They cut the bridge. They patch up Gwen. 2 days later, they make it to the foot of Ramiel. They're debating again here. Do we stop? Do we keep going? And Gwen's like, we're going to try to get to the top. Okay, Gwen. She's limping and she's like, no, we're going. So Gwen then kind of opens up and tells them what happened in Sangrava and how her sister was killed in front of her because she didn't reveal where they were keeping the children. All of this. Emery tells them about her father and how he was physically abusive to her and her mother, and to the point that he killed her mother. And then Nesta tells them about everything she's done and how she blames herself for her father's death. After all of this, they kind of tell each other all this. They decide to climb Ramiel together to win the whole damn thing. We're going to cut back again to Cassian and Azriel. They follow the caravan for 3 days. They finally get close, and Eris has a knife to Cassian's ribs. Nesta and Gwen... cutting back to Nesta, Gwen, and Emery have 4 hours left in the blood right. Bellius and his cronies end up pulling up. They catch up to them. Gwen's not doing well. Nesta puts Gwen on her back to carry her. It's this whole mess. Cut back to Cassian and Azriel. I'm so sorry. This is just how the book went. Cut back to Cassian and Azriel. They're with Eris. And they realize that Briolin has Eris's mind because she has the crown. So that theory that because he had the made object, she wouldn't be able to control him, not true. Nesta then falls down part of the mountain with Gwen on her back. And she decides that she will stay and hold the line. She's going to hold off the males that are approaching while Emery and Gwen continue on. And Gwen is like, no, we are not leaving you. Like, that's not what we do. And then Nesta uses a pressure point to make Gwen pass out, throws Gwen on Emery's back, is like, you guys go. I got this. Cut back to Cassian and Azriel. We find out that the cloaked figure that was with them that they thought was Briolin was actually Koshi. Cut back to Nesta. Nesta's fighting off the warriors while maintaining her mind-stilling exercises. We find out that the meaning of her sword's name, it's called Ataraxia, it means inner peace. So then, Cassian and Azriel, cut back to them, are speaking to Koshi, and Azriel tells Cassian to run. He grabs Eris and heads for the skies, but Cassian can't move because Briolin has now shown up. And she says she has need for him, tells Koshi to winnow them, and he does. So now Nesta continues to hold the line to protect her friends. Emery and Gwen make it to the top and win the blood right. And Bellius says that he never wanted to win, and then he launches himself at Nesta. So then Nesta's battling it out with Bellius. He disarms her. She tries to fight him in hand-to-hand combat, and he's like, do you really believe that you could beat me in hand-to-hand combat? And she says, yeah, my mate taught me well. Oh, yes, he did. Yes, he did. So Nesta's fighting with Bellius when Cassian shows up and slits Bellius's throat. So you would think, oh my God, I'm so relieved Cassian's here. Nope. Because then he tells Nesta he's going to slit her throat too. And we find out that Briolin is controlling him with the crown. And he's internally screaming, trying to warn her and begging her to kill him before she makes him do this. This scene is so good. So then Briolin explains her grand plan and how she used Eris to capture Cassian. And her plan was just to take Emery, knowing that Nesta would follow her into the blood right, but Nesta just made it easy for her by having a sleepover with her and that whole thing. So then Briolin gives Cassian the order. She says, kill. And he turns the knife into his own heart rather than kill Nesta, because he wasn't told to kill her. Briellen just said kill. So he turns the knife on himself. The way I was ugly crying when I read this the first time. So then Nesta explodes. Nesta absolutely explodes. She attacks Briellen, who then becomes ash on the ground and leaves only the crown behind. Crazy. We find out that Cassian never actually stabbed himself. He says that Nesta was able to unmake Briellen. The fact that he was like, oh, I figured I should lay low while you did that. Crazy work. So then Nesta says that he's her mate. They kiss a little bit. Mor and Azriel show up and they're like, it's Feyre. It's one thing after another. The last 100 pages, no one's safe. No one's safe. So we get to Feyre. She's bleeding out. She says to cut the baby out to maybe give the baby a chance to survive, knowing that her and Rhys would die when she dies. The baby comes out motionless. Feyre is dying. Rhys is screaming. And Nesta then accesses her power and is standing there with the harp, the mask, and the crown on. And then she plucks the 26th string on the harp. Now, the 26th string is time itself. So time stands still. Nesta walks through this frozen scene. She speaks to the voice that came out of the trove. She says that she wants to feel everything. When at one point she wanted to feel nothing. She says that she will give back what she took from the cauldron if it will save Rhys, Feyre, and the baby. So now Nesta has this bargain tattoo that she just made a bargain with the cauldron, essentially. So now she has a new tattoo. Feyre comes back to life. The baby is no longer small. It's a full-termed winged boy. Rhys grabs Nesta's hand, drops to his knees before her, and then she crouches down and embraces him. That whole thing, I hate the giving up the powers. I just don't like it. I don't feel like it's necessary. I get it, but I also don't get it. So we'll get to that in the theories video. Later on, Nesta sees Emery and Gwen, who are winnowed to the river house, fully healed when they touch the stone at the top of Ramiel. So they touch the stone, it takes them to the river house. Feyre and Rhys named their baby Nyx. And then Nesta made a bargain with the cauldron, but it didn't take all of her powers. When she was giving up her power, she also was able to change Feyre's anatomy, and then she changed her own anatomy to give herself Illyrian anatomy, so when she eventually has children. She says that she wants this grand mating ceremony to Cassian, and he says that Mor and Azriel will make fun of him. She offers him a biscuit that she stole from a tray, and he says that they'll have a big mating ceremony. So he's like, no, we'll have a big mating ceremony. I want to put a pin in that because I really do think that something's going to happen. Like, my prediction for the next book is that, because he never accepted it. So right now, the mating bond has not been accepted. I wonder if something's going to happen that's going to prevent that mating ceremony from happening. Nesta tells Cassian that she loves him. Cassian then speaks with Eris in the hewn city. We find out that Baron tortured Eris for answers, but Eris didn't give away anything important. And then Cassian asks about what happened with Mor and Eris, and Eris says that he will not explain it to him. Cassian tells Eris that he thinks he's a good man, but he's too much of a coward to actually act like one. So I do think in the next 2 books, he's going to get his act together. In the last chapter, we find out that Nesta and Cassian's mating ceremony will be held in 3 days. He never ate the food that she offered, so technically it isn't official at the end of this book. At the end of this book, technically not locked in. Rhys is throwing them this grand mating ceremony for saving his family. Feyre gives Feyre gives Nesta a painting of her holding the past. She tears up over this. And then Elaine, Feyre, Nesta, and Nyx go visit their dad's grave to show him his grandson. And that is a chapter-by-chapter summary of everything that happens in A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. I really hope you enjoyed it. I hope that these are helpful. It's designed so that you don't have to do a whole reread, but you kind of get the important bits and pieces. If you have listened this far, either send it to me via DM or comment it on my most recent post. We're going to do the crown emoji for today, for the crown from the Dread Trove. Thank you so much for listening to the end of the video. Honestly, like, you're a baddie for that. So welcome to the Baddie Club. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you want to check me out on Instagram at bestfriend.bookclub for the podcast or at simply serotonin, it's simply SARATONIN for my more like bookish lifestyle stuff. You can watch the video versions on YouTube at bestfriend.bookclub. I'm on TikTok at bestfriend.bookclub. And then if you want to check out the Patreon and support me over there, it's going to be patreon.com/bestfriendbookclubpodcast. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.